Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving headfirst into a truly bizarre, high-energy collision between TikTok, internet culture, and one of the world's most secretive organizations. If you've spent any time on social media recently, you've probably seen flashes of this chaotic trend. Well, we are going to break down exactly what is happening, why it's happening, and the surprisingly deep psychological and real-world consequences this whole thing is triggering.
Right off the bat, we've got to ask a question that honestly sounds like it was pulled straight out of a bizarre sci-fi novel. But this is actually playing out right now in major cities all the way from Los Angeles to Vancouver to New York. Seriously, what happens when TikTok treats a real, physical, highly secretive organization like it's just a level in a video game?
Okay, to really wrap our heads around this trend, we first need to define the gamer terminology that's completely driving it. Have you ever heard of a speedrun? In video game culture, it's exactly what it sounds like, attempting to blast through a level as fast as humanly possible, usually filming it to break records and rack up views. But here's the wild part. Young people are taking this purely digital concept and applying it to the physical world. They're literally treating buildings owned by the Church of Scientology like video game maps that just need to be conquered. And the timeline of this whole thing? It shows a completely staggering escalation. I mean, it started seemingly out of nowhere on March 25th, 2026, with just a single run by an 18-year-old on TikTok. But then, less than a week later, another creator's run exploded to 90 million views. 90 million! Once that viral benchmark was set, the escalation spread like wildfire. By mid-April, we were seeing groups pulling off coordinated raids with air horns in Hollywood. And by May 2nd, a crowd of around 300 youths descended on a facility in Vancouver. So, in literally just weeks, a solitary prank morphed into massive international flash mobs.
Moving into Section 1, gamifying the real world, the rules of the run. So how exactly are these kids translating gamer culture into actual physical spaces? Well, they operate entirely on video game logic, making up these absurd, unofficial rules just to maximize their clout online. The main goal is to dodge security guards and workers like they're just NPCs, non-playable characters. The ultimate objective is to seek out highly restricted areas that the runners jokingly call the Xenu, or Tom Cruise rooms. It's crazy. Online communities are literally stitching together footage from different runners to map out the interior layouts of these buildings for future attempts. Oh, and to make the clips as viral as possible, they're doing all this wearing masks, or in some totally bizarre cases, full-on Minion and hot dog costumes. Now, what's really fascinating to me is how the physical world is actually adapting to the digital one here. If you're a gamer, you know that to nerf something means to weaken it or make it less effective. Well, in response to the constant incursions at their Hollywood Boulevard property, the Church of Scientology literally removed the external door handles. They just took them right off. And the speedrunners immediately took to online forums to complain that the church had nerfed their entry points. It's just a surreal collision of internet slang and actual real-world security. Which brings us to Section 2, the Church Strikes Back, Real-World Consequences. Taking a step back and just impartially looking at the facts, there is a massive, massive disconnect between these two groups. On one side, you have the speedrunners, right? They're framing their actions as a harmless prank, a viral challenge, or even trying to pass it off as a form of activism. But on the other side, the Church of Scientology is treating this with the utmost severity. They are reporting organized trespassing, property damage, and characterizing these incursions as hate crimes aimed at a religious institution. And caught right in the middle of all this is law enforcement. The LAPD has officially launched hate crime investigations, and arrests have already been made, like during that massive incident in Vancouver. To really give you a sense of the chaos we're talking about, just think about the number 25. That is the exact number of people who forced their way through a locked door into the New York Church of Scientology on May 2nd, right while a seminar was going on. During this specific incident, objects were thrown, property was damaged, and a 30-year-old staff member was actually kicked in the leg so hard they required medical attention. At that point, this clearly crossed the line from a digital game into physical harm. And a really crucial point about all this is captured perfectly by Leah Remini, a prominent former member and outspoken critic of the organization. She provides a sober reality check on this so-called activism. She points out that this trend creates chaos, it creates a spectacle, but worst of all, it hands the organization exactly what it needs to position itself as the victim. When people act like an aggressive mob, it entirely shifts the public narrative. Let's pivot a bit for Section 3, Project Scientology, a look back to 2008.
To really understand why these TikTok stunts might be totally misfiring, we actually need to look back at history. Back in 2008, the famous anonymous protests started out very similarly, basically as internet trolling over a leaked Tom Cruise video. But under the guidance of early critics, it quickly morphed into a sustainable movement. They shifted to civil, Gandhi-like public protests all around the world, and most importantly, they focused on asking specific, pointed questions on their protest signs, like, when did you last see your family? When we put these two movements side by side, the difference is just glaringly obvious. The 2008 Scientology movement became message-driven. It applied sustained pressure and actively sought to communicate a specific point to the members inside. But the 2026 speedrunning trend, it is entirely view-driven. It's chaotic. There is absolutely no clear goal being communicated to the people inside those buildings other than trying to get a better video clip for personal internet clout. This leads us right into Section 4, Activism versus Attention. Former Sea Org member Chris Shelton wrote a really fascinating essay analyzing this whole trend, and he makes a brilliant point. True activism doesn't feel like a viral internet challenge from the inside. Real advocacy, real opposition, it's a deeply personal and moral conflict. It is definitely not a game of capturing flags or dodging security guards just to get likes on an app. And this right here reveals the ultimate trap of the speedruns. By acting like an unpredictable mob, these kids are unwittingly helping the organization. High control groups naturally teach their members that the outside world is hostile, irrational, and completely dangerous. So imagine you're inside and suddenly people in masks burst through the doors blowing air horns. That instantly validates all that paranoia. It literally drives members deeper into the organization, convincing them that the church is their absolute only safe space. It basically allows the leadership to perfectly reinterpret any valid outside criticism as nothing more than aggressive religious bigotry. Finally, let's look at Section 5, Attention without meaningful pressure. Ultimately, this whole trend exposes a massive flaw in how we consume media today. We are all stuck in what's known as the attention economy trap. Because these runners are essentially paid in views, likes, and engagement, they have to constantly escalate their stunts just to keep eyeballs on the screen. Think about it. Running into the lobby gets boring pretty fast, right? So then they have to run to the second floor. Then they have to bring an air horn. Then they have to do it in a massive group of 300 people. They completely lose the plot of what they're supposedly protesting, confusing raw viral visibility with actual meaningful impact. Shelton perfectly summarizes this entire phenomenon with a profound thought on the fleeting nature of internet clout. He says, a game ends when people lose interest. A movement continues when people find a reason to stay. And that's so true. This speedrun trend will inevitably end the exact moment the algorithm shifts its focus, leaving behind zero tangible change and really only leaving property damage and heightened security in its wake. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought to consider the next time a chaotic trend pops up on your feed. If the goal is truly to challenge a powerful organization, you really have to ask yourself, are you just doing something that gets attention, or are you doing something that actually creates pressure? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking the right questions, and I will see you next time.